What's going on, guys? Carson back here with another video, this time celebrating one of my good friends in the comic book community's big milestone, and that friend is Whodat Comics and Movies. He is celebrating 500 subscribers by having a contest on his channel. I'll definitely be sure to put that link down below for you guys. But basically, if you guys don't know Whodat, I highly recommend subscribing to his channel. He's been a friend of mine since I've made my first video on YouTube. Basically, he's the guy who kind of gave me that kick in the butt. He's just like, hey man, I need you to make a video to prove you real, because I was winning, on his auctions, the Great Legends auctions, Alex Comic Hoarders auctions. But I never really made a video until I got an email from Whodat. And he's just like, man, not everyone thinks you really think there's those dang shill bitters in the community. So he sent me an email, and I'm like, you know what? I'll at least do him that one favor. And I'm still here, yep. Still real, so there you go. So, we all know that joke by now at this point. But nonetheless, the details of his contest. He has several things we're going to go over today. By the way, if you want to enter this, you have until June 26th. To enter this contest. So June 26th, so we're about 10 days out as of this video being posted of that deadline, so make sure you guys get on that. But what we're going to cover today here is our favorite character growing up. You probably already know the answer to that if you watch my channel. We're going to cover our favorite character as an adult, favorite current comic book read, which I gotta mention more than one, you know how I do it here. And then favorite comic book movie, as well as a couple other bonus things we'll cover after, so stay tuned. Alright, so favorite comic book character growing up. I mean, if you guys have been paying attention to this channel, you already know the answer. That's my boy Connor Kent, Superboy. Back in the early 90s, they killed off Superman, and when they did that, they basically brought in 4 different Supermen for you to cheer for, like buy their books and what have you. So of course, me being younger at the time, I bought into Superboy hook, line, and sinker, basically. I mean, he was the 90s personified. And once, they brought back Superman, luckily they gave him his own title. It was just mind-blowing to me that, my favorite character at the time, he just got introduced in Adventures of Superman 500, but I was so happy after the Reign of the Superman that, my boy, my character, he finally got his own title that inevitably ran for 100 issues throughout the 90s, so definitely for me an easy pick. I mean, especially like if you continue to follow the character after the 90s and see his growth in the Jeff Johns Teen Titans, you even look back after that and like the character even more after they added all these like growing pains, imperfections, and the fact that he found out that Lex Luthor was half his DNA. So after you find all this out, they found a way to even make the character more compelling. So absolutely love it. Alright, now that I'm an adult, like, well, who is my favorite character now? I mean, there's some obvious answers like Superman or Batman. I think I'm going to go with, I've narrowed it down to 2. I couldn't narrow it down to 1, but we're going to talk about 2 real quick. The first one, I got to talk about Buddy Baker, Animal Man. Ever since I read and also reread the Grant Morrison Animal Man run from the late 80s that went on to the early 90s, I feel like the way the character was written and portrayed was way before its time. Luckily, the character did get a little bit of justice later on from Jeff Lemire in the New 52 run. But for me, once I read that Animal Man run from Grant Morrison, it was an instant classic for me and will always stand out to be one of my favorite characters. If you haven't done so, definitely go out of your way and check out that Grant Morrison run. And come on, DC Universe, you gotta put it back on the app so everyone else can read it by now. What are you guys thinking over there? And on the Marvel side, we'll just go ahead and talk about Matt Murdock, Daredevil, real quick. My big story that I read that really got me into that character was Daredevil Born Again. I think that story is up there with your Watchmen's, your Dark Knight Returns, and that stuff, and being influential stories of, that late 80s Copper Age era. For me, once I read that, once again, instant classic, instant fan of Matt Murdock. You get to see him being broken down piece by piece by Wilson Fisk, and instead of giving up and being beaten, he rebuilds himself from literally the gutters of New York to rise back up to kind of reclaim not only the Daredevil mantle, but the Matt Murdock name itself, because Wilson Fisk did a number on him to the point where, I mean, it just completely destroyed both sides of his identity. So once again, just based on that read alone, that is one of my favorite characters of all time. Not to mention, you know, the awesome TV show, and then the phenomenal runs he had throughout the 2000s with Kevin Smith, and of course Joe Quesada on the pencils. You had the Brian Bendis run, the Ed Brubaker run, the Mark Waid run. All of it is great. So I think on the Marvel side, he is definitely one of my favorite characters. Alright, so next up, he wants us to talk about our favorite current comic book read. And once again, you know, I can't narrow it down to just one. You know how I go. So I think I got, we'll say 3 picks. So number one, since this is Who Dat, I know he loves himself some TMNT. And obviously, I like Turtles as well. We got to talk about the TMNT ongoing. Phenomenal read, especially right now. Shout out to Chad from 90MF Comics for doing his sales pitch and get me hooked into this book. If you guys hop on it right now, they're doing this arc called City at War. Basically, the Foot Clan, read by Master Splinter, not Shredder. Splinter is basically trying to fight for their turf in New York against Shredder's daughter, who's trying to reclaim the Foot Clan. Meanwhile, there's mafia involvement. Other mutants are getting involved. We see Mondo Gecko in there. And not to mention the fact they just got off another crazy storyline involving the Triceratons, Metalhead, who's still lurking around for City at War. So it's just an amazing, crazy read right now. They're working into all those nostalgic characters you remember from your childhood into this crazy, slightly grittier storyline now. I mean, if you like Turtles, there's pretty much nothing not to love here. So if you like Turtles, definitely go check that out. And then my other ones, I gotta talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer from Boom. I've legit enjoyed that book every month it's came out. If you haven't heard my sales pitch on it already, they're basically giving it like the ultimate Marvel treatment, kind of like they did Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men in the year 2000. You get to see a completely revamped Buffy the Vampire Slayer growing up in today's age. So they have cell phones and all that fun stuff. And I've really enjoyed the plot twist they had in the last issue. I won't spoil it here, but one of the Scooby Gang's outlook is not very good, and they're only like 5 issues in, so they're taking some risks with this title, and I definitely appreciate that. And my last pick I'm going to talk about is Doomsday Clock. Now I know everyone is the book that kind of most people love to hate for whatever reason, just because mainly it doesn't really work itself into the DC continuity right now that well, and it's coming out 2 months at a time. But if you can actually go back, reread the second half of it, and kind of make sense of everything that's going on in it, I think you'll start to realize, like, wow, Johns is finally starting to make this feel like a true sequel to The Watchmen involving your favorite DC characters. So I think if it keeps going on the momentum into the last 2 issues, this will be a read we're going to talk about for years to come. Now, favorite comic book movie. Now, once again, you know me, I can't pick just one, but I'm going to at least pick 2. So I'm actually going to steal something from this same contest. I'm going to pick a movie I liked as a kid and a movie I've really enjoyed now. So as a kid, there was no better comic book related movie than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1990. Once again, this is Who Dat's contest, so I got to bring up Turtles as often as possible. So when I watched this movie as a kid, it changed everything. I mean, I always thought about this movie as like the perfect bridge between, 80s pulp culture and the beginning of 90s pulp culture and movie making. I mean, you got the awesome Jim Henson puppetry in there, and just that gritty, like, late 80s style of filmmaking. It's technically an independent movie released by New Line Cinema. But man, when I saw this as a kid, my mind was just blown. I mean, it was one thing to go back and watch the cartoons, but to this day, I still go back and watch that movie with a big smile on my face and enjoy myself every time. And, just even when hanging out with friends who like the movie, I just start throwing out random stupid Casey Jones quotes. Like, is that a Jose Canseco bat? Tell me you didn't pay money for this. It's like a couple throw pillows, a TV news reporter, just all the stupid lines that, Mikey or Raph, Casey Jones would say in that movie. I mean, it's still one of my top favorite movies of all time. But in terms of, movies currently that as an adult I will probably watch over and over again for the rest of my life. I know it's a little bit current and trendy, but I still got to go with the Avengers Infinity War as my favorite movie now, because as a kid, once again, I really always wanted a Crisis on Infinite Earths movie. Just seeing a live action big blockbuster movie with all of my favorites from the DC universe teaming up on screen, and all these crazy other branching storylines coming into one overall big storyline. You know, unfortunately, as a DC fan, I may never get that done well, but at least the Marvel fan in me, and you know, definitely a huge shout out to all those Marvel fans out there. They got that type of movie with Infinity War, and even now Endgame. But I'm specifically focusing on Infinity War because it was the first time you got to see 10 years worth of continuity and characters come into one about 2.5 hour movie, and it was absolutely amazing to watch. It's probably been the first movie in a long time I have watched over and over again since it came out. Alright, so those were my picks for all of his topics he wanted me to bring up. So a couple other bonus things I'm going to talk about for Whodat here. He wanted the entrance to this contest to subscribe to 4 other YouTubers, which you definitely should already be anyway. If you're subscribed to my channel, you're probably going to be subscribed to these people, but I'm going to shout them out anyway, and we'll put the links below to all these people. So we got ThoroQBoro, he's an awesome guy. He's been making a huge impact in the auction scene lately here in the comic book community. If you're looking for like dollar books and that stuff, he does dollar auctions at any time of day just to try to involve as many people as possible. So definitely sub up ThoroQBoro. He's an awesome guy. Next up on the list, we got AllAboutComics. I had the pleasure of meeting him at C2E2 this previous year, last March. Awesome guy. Glad I got a chance to meet him. Also had the privilege of being on a few of his auctions. So I think he's revamping his channel a little bit based on cards and collecting more than comics, but still, nonetheless, you owe him your sub. He's a great guy, so definitely check his channel out. Next up, I think this guy, he gets like paid professionally to be in other people's live streams just to shout their chat. Of course, I'm talking about Jeffrey KomiKhan Hensen. So Jeffrey's like the nicest guy you're ever going to meet out there. So definitely sub up Jeffrey. If you've seen any other live content on YouTube, you probably know who Jeffrey is by now. And then last but certainly not least, we got Tony Sanders, the Tone, aka Vincent Kennedy McSand. One of my favorites in the community. He has some awesome live content on his channel as well, especially The Hunt, which is probably like maybe the best live show I've seen in a long time, especially when you're talking comics in the bank, people cashing in on his channel, talking smack on his channel. He's actually getting ready to introduce a new show coming soon too that I cannot wait. So definitely sub up those 4 people. And then the last challenge Whodat had was just for everyone to pay it forward and give an example of how you're paying it forward. I guess my pay it forward is next week. I'm actually planning a cookout at work, and we're going to try to raise proceeds for the local Riley Children's Hospital around here. So if you guys are interested in hearing more about that, or wanting to see if you can give to the Riley Children's Hospital, I'll go ahead and put their link down below as well. But to wrap things up here, definitely sub up Whodat, comics and movies. You need all the news about comics, movies. You definitely owe it to yourself to sub him up. And if you like auctions, I mean, he's getting ready to start his own auction in July on his channel, the 1st and 3rd week, or 3rd Saturday, I should say, of every month. So he's taking up the Great Legend spot. So once again, if you guys like the auction scene, sub his channel up and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the auction action. But once again, big thanks to you guys for watching this movie. Big thanks to Whodat for hosting this contest and always showing support for me and my channel. Definitely, I think it's pretty safe to say I would not be doing this now if it wasn't for him. So with all that being said, thank you guys once again for watching, and have a wonderful night.